Today, I'm talking about the Asics Novablast after 100 miles. 11.83 miles, 8 minutes, 17 seconds per mile, 138 beats per minute on average today. With today's run, getting the Asics Novablast over the 100 mile mark. This is a shoe I've been pretty excited to talk to you guys about from a long-term perspective, and I'm so excited that I brought my friend Eddbud back to the channel so we could talk about it to you together. But before I get to that, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a shoe that was sent to me for the purpose of review by Roadrunner Sports. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use this shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my or Ed's thoughts before this video goes up on YouTube. With the disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the Asics Novablast after 100 miles. If you are looking for very specifics in terms of how all the materials are holding up and how the run experience changed over that time, go to Eddbud's channel. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in detail over there. I'll post links in the description. You should probably go check that one out first, and then you can come back in here. And in the rest of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what this shoe means for Asics, if they even know, and what we hope that Asics does with this shoe going forward. All right, Ed, so thanks so much for joining me in this 100-mile review discussion about the Asics Novablast generally. First of all, let me know, what did you, just overall from the top, what did you think about this shoe?
Well, I think, Mike, this shoe's been odd. When I first put it on and I first wore it, my initial impression was really confused. I kind of looked at the shoe first and went, well, what is it? You know, where are they going with this one? It's a relatively heavy shoe at 300, I think it's about 310 grams in my size, which isn't the lightest by any stretch of the imagination. And when I started running at pace in it, it felt really good. I felt like I was putting in a lot of effort to get to certain paces. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like it wasn't coming easy by any stretch of the imagination. But then when I started running at lower paces in it, the first couple of times, it was just so unstable. I was thinking to myself, what is this shoe? Mm-hmm. Where are they going with it? And also, you know, some of the stylings, there's just so much foam here, these weird kind of shapes. It's like, where are they going with this shoe? Is it supposed to be a matchup against some of the more casual Nike offerings? Am I even going to be able to run in this shoe after 100 miles? Because it just felt ridiculously unstable, certainly at slower paces. But then after about 20, 30 miles, it really mellowed out. And I just find it's a great shoe for me for those easier paces, really. That was my initial kind of impression. And then towards the end to 100 miles, that's where I came to. I actually really enjoyed running in it at those lower paces. At high pace, it just felt like it's almost like you're kind of, when you put your hand into a sponge, you know, mm-hmm. It just sinks in there and disappears. But there wasn't an awful lot coming back for me. But that aside, it's certainly an interesting shoe, isn't it, from Asics? Something completely different.
Yeah, I agree. I had pretty much the same experience that you had, where I initially thought that this was way too squishy and I'm going to end up hurting my knees running in this thing. That mellowed out relatively soon, and then I just felt like I had a really comfortable shoe to run in. It reminded me a lot of like the older Ultra Boost, where most people wore them casually, but could run in them, but it was a little bit squishy, where it's like if your easy paces and slower, Absolutely fantastic. You can go all day. You could go faster, you can go longer, but you're going to work for it a little bit. But I think that this is probably a little bit more successful, the Novablast, than like the Ultra Boost 4.0. That's kind of my overall, like, real quick summary of the shoe.
I did weirdly put on my Ultra Boost back from 2018. So it would be the version 3, I think it is, the V3s. And they do feel really similar, actually, to these. Bear in mind that there's been a lot of lawn mowing done in those, a lot of garden work of recent time. There's not an awful lot of outsole left on those. That's one thing about these, actually. The outsole rubber is just ridiculous in terms of its durability. Mine just look, they apart from a small little section back here, just on the very outer side, they look incredible. I don't know what they put into this stuff. Am I right in saying this is the high abrasion rubber plus?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, if they had tweaked their rubber composition for this shoe or not. But, I've been thinking for a long time that Asics just has so much rubber. It kind of doesn't make sense to call your rubber high abrasion rubber if you have to put that much on it to make it feel durable. Yeah. And they're kind of putting their money where their mouth is on this one. And I'm seeing more kind of wear on mine than I would normally see on an Asics at this mileage, but it's also like consistent with like 100-mile shoe. And I feel like that's it. They did it. It's great.
Yeah, I did see a picture. Well, it was actually some video of a guy putting his up against a belt sander.
Okay.
And it took ages for any of it to come off. It was just, I don't know. I don't know if they need quite that much. Maybe if they could just give us a little less and just like weight relieve the shoe a little bit. I think they could do that, and it'll probably save them on like shipping costs as well. Look after pay anywhere near as much to ship all this rubber around everywhere.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that at the beginning you weren't sure like if you could even run in this shoe. I mean, I've talked to a couple of different Asics people, and I remember seeing like early like discussions about it from like the running event last year. Where it was like, I was unsure what the intent for this shoe was. Like, what do you think Asics thought this shoe was, and compare that to like what you think that is?
Well, it's a bit of a shoe. I kind of slept on it for a little bit, I got a pair of them, and then I thought I need to get out in this. Loads of people were asking me, Ed, go out, go and test it. What's it like? And from trying out the other shoes, I was thinking, it's got to be along the same lines of an Asics, a little firmer ride. Maybe they're going for something that's perhaps a little similar to the Turbo, maybe, the Pegasus Turbo, something like that. But it's not like any of those shoes. It's actually closest, as you say, to the Ultra Boost line. And in that respect, I'm not entirely sure what Asics have planned. It's almost like a prototype shoe. Like they've kind of thrown some ideas together, like a slightly lighter upper than they would have normally. When you compare it to the, where have I got it? I've got it here somewhere. When you compare it to this beast, this is, it's like a tank, isn't it? This thing, the upper on the glide ride is just so considerable. And yet you then look at this, there's just no comparison. They're weight relieving. They're trying to get into that market, I think. A lot of people are certainly put off, I think, from Asics in terms of those who are lighter runners, somebody whose build is a little slighter. They tend to steer away from them. And I think that's probably to get into that market a little bit more.
See, I think that you're very right in like the prototype. I think they made this shoe and they were like, let's see where it sticks. Because my initial thoughts on it, and it took me a while to start running in this shoe too, just like it did for you. But I think for a different reason, because I thought this was like not really a really running shoe. Because like I remember, like I think it was the year before, maybe 2 years ago, they did like a collab shoe, a lifestyle shoe with Steve Aoki. Which like if they had made that shoe as a running shoe, I think it had no laces. I would have tried it, but when they positioned it as like, great for attending your CEO meetings during the day and then going to your rave at night kind of thing. I was like, I don't think this is really made with like runners in mind. And I thought that this was maybe more along those lines, especially when I started hearing about people talking about how soft it was. And I was like, okay, this is appealing to the people that want that step in comfort of like an Ultra Boost. And so that's what it is. But then, and I still kind of thought that after my first run. But then as I ran it more and it started to mellow out, I was like, no. I think this is a real running shoe. I think they really got something on their, good on their hands here. And I'm not sure that hopefully they realize it by now, but I don't think they really realized it when they like when whoever greenlighted this project greenlighted it. I don't think that they knew for sure. Yeah. Like right away.
I think it's such a polarizing shoe as well, because so many runners have bought it. I've just been trawling through some of the comments on my channel and your channel too. And so many people buy it and they're either like, oh, I love this shoe. This is like the greatest shoe I've bought in a long time. Or they're like, yeah, I ran around the block and I just sent it back. I can't run in it. So I think it really does. Maybe it's dependent a little bit on foot strike, on mechanics. Certainly for me, much more slower paces. It just feels really nice now. But that was the exact opposite of what I had right at the start. I just kind of learned to kind of dig the shoe. Although I did do I'm always messing around with shoes, trying to experiment with them a little bit, I guess. And the laces for me were a bit of a downer. They're just so thin and almost they felt like they were cutting into your fingers when you were cinching the shoe up. And I did swap the insole out to try a couple of things to see if I could kind of neutralize that overly squishy feel. But in the end, I've kind of gone back to the original insoles, and I think these laces are out of my Fuel Cell Rebels, actually. I think I nicked them from there because I didn't like the elasticity in those, but I did like them in these. So I don't know who green lights these laces, Mike, sometimes. Have you tried doing the shoe up,
Yeah, I have no like experience to judge it, but my like wild speculation is that like people like you and me spend tons of time discussing laces, and I have a feeling people are like, all right, well, like we want to hit this price point. Like what laces can we get for the rest of the money that we have left? I feel like it's like the last thing considered for the most part in a lot of shoes.
And sometimes the most important thing, everybody puts the icing on top of the cake, puts the cherry on the top, just to get the best laces.
I mean, I just thought that like the upper on this shoe was a little bit overbuilt. It seems like there's a lot of upper for the sake of having upper. And so that's like not my favorite part about the shoe. And then to combine that with like really thin laces seemed like it didn't match. Like I felt like they sent the wrong laces in it, Yeah. So the last thing that I think we'll talk about is like, all right, I think you and I both agree that this is like a real running shoe. And if they gave like the Novablast like its own like mini like series or mini franchise, kind of like there's the, Glide Ride, Evo Ride, there's that series of shoes. What would it look like if they built a little series of shoes around the Novablast? What do you think? I have my thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
It's almost like I want them to chop off some of the stuff here and just sort of simplify it a little bit. I mean, this like ridge, that goes around the back. I understand it's there to kind of give a bit of stability in the heel, but it just feels like it kind of chopped that off. It almost feels as if they were kind of created this shoe and then thought, oh, hang on a minute, everyone's putting these carbon fiber plates in their shoes. Imagine what if there was a shoe with this type of material, but with a carbon fiber plate inside. Maybe not even a full length plate, just something to give it some extra sort of stability in the front. A little less upper here, something a little bit thinner along the lines of the like the Run Fast Pro or from Reebok or even the Meta Racer, Imagine that upper on this. That'll be a drastically different shoe. I'm not sure that's in their DNA though. Will they try something so what I want to say trendy that everyone else is doing right now? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you on that one, where I think that like this could easily be part of like, I mean, we see it in Saucony's Endorphin series. There's like that 3-shoe set, but I think that we could have a 3-shoe set here. And I think do you have experience with the Road Blast? I think that's just like almost very similar to this shoe, just with less stack height. Have you tried it?
No, they've not released the Road Blast over here yet. It's really odd. Like there's certain shoes at the moment, Mike, that they seem to release only in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other stuff that's over in the US that just hasn't come out.
Yeah, but I think like a 3-shoe series could be like the Novablast as like the everyday trainer or like the max cushion. And then something that kind of is like the Road Blast. I haven't run it yet either, but like a little bit less of the foams, something a little bit snappier, maybe even kind of like a turbo approach. And you mentioned the turbo earlier, where it's a little bit of something a little bit stiffer and something of that's a little bit softer. So like the turbo's got React and Zoom X. So maybe just regular flight foam and then the flight foam blast, both in thin layers to get something really snappy, and then just trim the heck out of the upper so that it's not so like bulky. And then if there's like a race, and then if there's like a race version, just like you were saying, like a almost like an upper swap or a sole swap, take the upper from the Meta Racer, maybe put a little bit of carbon in there, and then put some FF Blast on the bottom. Cause like I love the Meta Racer. I think it's one of the more exciting shoes this year that's out, but I'm not gonna be able to race a marathon in it. But if there was like a mix of some softer stuff in there too, I don't know. I mean, I'll be trying the Adizero Pro coming hopefully within the next week. And I'm thinking like that's kind of like a similar idea. Like take the Adios 5, which is a great shoe, but most people can't race a marathon in it. Put a little bit extra softer foam. I don't know. I think it could be really interesting from Adidas to see, from Asics to see that.
Yeah, hopefully that the sales have been good. It seems as if they have for the Novablast. It'd be really cool to see them actually expand out that into a little set, different shoe, different purposes. It's one thing I only got to do like I think it was like a 10 or 11 mile effort in the Novablast. But at that point I was coming up towards the end and it was like, oh, I'm actually really sad about this. It's like I was coming up to 100. I'll probably put it in the rotation for a little longer, but there's so much other stuff to try out. And I'm actually a little sad now that I've kind of got to that point with it.
I think that's a good sign where when like you're like, for me, I'm usually done with a shoe at 100 miles just because I want to get to a lot of shoes. Sounds like you're doing a similar thing. And if you want to keep it for after that, I mean, that's kind of like a really great sign from the shoe. So I'm really excited about what this means for Asics. And hopefully it's not one of those things that's like, has like a small cult following, loved by a small number of people, and then just never goes anywhere. Hopefully they keep going somewhere with it.
In terms of like the actual cost as well, I think that they've got a really good price point. There's a lot of local club runners that have been going for this shoe as well, because it's around about that. It's a more affordable price. You know, £100 or whatever is still a lot of money for a shoe, but I think there's quite a lot here for a range of different runners.
Very cool. Very cool to hear that. All right. Well, thanks so much for spending your time with me today, Ed, and for sharing your thoughts on the Novablast and what it means for Asics.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Be safe out there. So that was my discussion with Eddbud about the Asics Novablast over the last 100 miles. Hopefully you enjoyed the discussion. I had a fantastic time talking about that shoe with Eddbud. If you have any questions for either of us, please feel free to put them down in the comments down below. And don't forget to check out his video where we talk about the nitty gritty of the Novablast after the 100 miles on his channel as well. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?